Our next wonderful facilitator is our own Tali Puterman, I believe.
Yes, it is. Hello, everybody.
Tali.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. The next talk will start now because it is 3 o'clock and the topic is social justice in today's times. And it's delightful to have been learning with so many of you throughout the day. Before getting started on my topic in particular, I really just want to lift up the learning that has been going on. I personally have been in this Zoom room since 8 a.m. with just a very short break in between there. And I know that I've seen many of you here with me throughout the morning and in other rooms as well. And I would love to, before we really dive in, just hear if you've been on this Tikkun Zoom Shavuot since last night, if you're just tuning in now, if you've been on to any talk, what is we haven't been able to hear all the sessions in all the rooms. So I'd love to just lift up a learning or two that you have heard today. I personally have gone from deep Torah into poetry and indigenous history and Zionism. I feel like I've touched so many topics, and that alone has been really exciting. So I'd love to hear whether you want to put it in the chat, whether you want to say it out loud, a topic or two that has really interested you over the course of the last something hours. Amazing. On until midnight, went for a ride, so no sleep. Yes, I see a question in the chat about recordings. There will be recordings sent out, but we'll need a few days to get them online, so they will not be out immediately.
So the combo is great. It's like I just went from, understanding about our personal freedom and freedom in the world and our personal definitions of God to like this intense thing on anti-Semitism in Massachusetts, which if you're from Massachusetts, this should not be interesting one. And now, the social justice to help heal that. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Ellen. I know I've been in this room with you for a number of hours now, so it's great to be here all morning with you. Any other just quick snippets, whether in the chat or out loud, of topics that you've been hearing about, anything that surprised you or enlightened you over the last few hours? Helen.
How about tarot and Torah for a mind opening?
Yes,
And of
tarot.
course, I fell asleep and I didn't hear Susie's group, so I'm glad there'll be a recording.
There will be recordings. I know I'm seeing those questions still come in the chat. So there will be recordings. We are recording these, but our staff will need a couple of days to get them online and viewable for everyone before we send them out. So please be patient, but they will become available. So, Ruth has her hand raised. Ruth Elkins.
So yes, it was really great to learn from my classmate Barbara Simons and her excellent book that she edited.
Amazing. Prophetic Voices.
Yes,
Love it.
Just really
Yes.
interesting session. So
it really has been incredible how much we all have to teach each other and learn from each other. Adam.
Thanks. I was just like wrestling with this lovely, full of energy presentation from Rabbi Judson and the juxtaposition of these Massachusetts leaders seemingly staunchly advocating for the self-determination of the Jewish people, while at the same time brutally suppressing the rights of self-determination of the native people here in Massachusetts, and the ways that that thread goes throughout history of like whose freedom is valued and whose is suppressed or rejected.
Yes, that is a thread that I was also noticing myself, just how we could be talking about completely different types of people across history, across great landscapes of time and cultures, and yet so much of it runs a thread through. And I think that will continue to be so during this next topic, social justice in today's times. So just to introduce who I am, I'm Tali Puterman, and I work at Temple Israel Boston as the Director of Justice Organizing and Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. This topic could, I mean, if we're talking about today's times, there are so many things that one could talk about. And part of what we will really be talking about is going to be how much and what this Zoom room wants to bring up. So, what I'm going to do is share some information. I want to share some information and invitation to the type of social justice work that Temple Israel is currently doing. But that is not to say that if you are from a different state or a different country or a different synagogue in the greater Boston area, that this Zoom is not for you, because social justice is nothing if we're not doing it together, if we're not learning from each other, if we're not questioning and adding our resources together. So I know from my job that this is a period of time where many people are asking, what can we do? There's just so much going on in this world that feels so difficult, so tragic, so unjust. What can I do? What is something of actual value that I can do? How can I spend my time that will be impactful? So, part of this session is going to be answering that question through Temple Israel. What are we doing to try to answer that question? And therefore, you are invited to do it with us. So, anything that we are doing, we could even probably figure it out if you're in a totally different country or different time zone or not a member. Anything that we are doing, you're invited to do it with us. And if you are doing things in your own community, in your own synagogue, if there are things that we're not doing, if there are questions that you have, this is how we strengthen our justice work, how we understand where our communities are, what we're interested in. So please feel free to add your thoughts, add your questions as we go through this conversation. And there are a number of clergy and congregants that I recognize from Temple Israel. So if there's anything that you're working on, anything that you would like to add, please feel free to do so. So in one moment, I'm just going to share my screen so that we can look at a slide. And if you raise your hand like this, because I'm sharing my screen, I might not see you. So feel free to unmute and talk or put something in the chat, and I will do my best to come and answer your question at the time. So this first slide, some lovely pictures of those of us doing justice work at Temple Israel, and it says there are many ways to make an impact. You can see here in this photo that we have people making food for those who need. We have people protesting at the State House. We have people who are planning to meet with their senators, their legislators in what we would call community organizing. We have a group down on the bottom left corner working with the organization Vote Riders straight out of Georgia, supporting people on the ground to go back on the voting rolls. So there are plenty of ways to do social justice. There are plenty of ways to make an impact. So I'm going to stop sharing for another moment because I would love to hear from all of you. What are some ways that you make an impact? There are just so many different ways that we can make an impact, whether we're talking about different types of ways to do it or different topics, issue areas that we could spend our time. So please, whether you want to share it out loud or put it in the chat, what are some ways that you like to make an impact or that you do make an impact? Protecting intangible cultural heritage of Juneteenth. Thank you, Sasha. I'd love to know more if you want to put that in the chat, a little bit more information about what you are doing since Juneteenth is coming up really soon. I'm sure this group would love to hear about it and where you are located. If you're in the greater Boston area, if you're somewhere else, that would be great to know. Anybody else out there making an impact in any way, whether you're educating? Yes, Ellen Fine.
Can someone else go first and then I'll go afterwards?
Okay. Somebody else would like to go before Ellen. a way that you're making an impact, whether you're doing it through education. Oh, let's see, documenting stories of undocumented immigrants. Thank you, Gabby. That is um, really important work right now. And again, if there's anything that you want to share in the chat or out loud so that we could access any of your justice work or any of the ways you're making an impact, this is a great opportunity for us as a community to learn together and share that work together. Ellen, are you ready?
Yeah, I just, I just tried to give some space there. So I run a food justice, a mutual aid food justice work or group in Needham Heights near the Newton border. And we also do gardening work and protecting pollinators, and have gone over towards helping some folks who are immigrants recently. Yeah, and also I do a lot of activism on pesticide issues. I was poisoned myself from neighbor's lawn use of pesticides, and for those of you who don't know, Massachusetts starts spraying basically tonight, and really ineffective. It doesn't really solve the problem, it just causes a lot of pesticides to be out in the air, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of gallons, so that's some of the work.
Wow, sorry to hear about your personal experience with that, and thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing in the area. So I see that Sasha is located in Pittsburgh and shared a little bit about creating the first Juneteenth Seder as a
Yes.
Jew. Oh, yes. Oh, you're right there. Do you want
Yeah,
to?
I'm an actual descendant of actually a famous person who is a descendant of Juneteenth. My ancestor, my great great grandfather, was freed at 1 year old from the first Juneteenth. I, with other Juneteenth descendants who are also Jewish, we created a Juneteenth Seder for the conservative movement that we have made available that other people can use. That we're trying to make it the definitive actual resource to use for Juneteenth for Jewish people. And I do work with protecting intangible cultural heritage of African Americans because a lot of people believe that our culture is actually something that everyone can do whatever they want with without understanding there are actually cultural rules and practices that, like any other culture, that are actually reserved for certain groups of people. So I've actually done work with the California Reparations Commission to actually work on that issue and to actually work on issues of reparations in total for the country.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sasha. So a part of why I am opening the Zoom in this way to ask people to share is because, at least in my work, working in the social justice field right now, it can it can feel really bad sometimes. A lot of the times with the news, you can't really look away from the news for 5 minutes without something else horrible coming up and feeling, how is this where we are as a country? How is this where we are as a world? And it is through all of us as a community, us as individuals, that are really where we can see that positivity, where we can see how we are going to be able to get through many of these really difficult times. And I know that there's so many of us on the screen, probably all of us, that are doing that work in some way, shape, or form. And just because I'm doing it as a profession doesn't make what I'm doing any bigger, better, more important than any of the work that you all might be doing. And by sharing this across our various locations and by uplifting the incredible work that everybody is doing, I hope that we all feel invited into the work in the way that it makes sense for us. There's something that each and every one of us can do to make a difference. And I appreciate all of you being on. And as we go through, you can continue to share work that you are doing, any links, any invitations. I'm about to share my screen again and share some of the various groups that we are, various issues that we're working on at Temple Israel. And so if you're a part of the Temple Israel community and you didn't know about some of the work that we're doing, please feel free to reach out if you would like to be a part of it. If you're not part of the Temple Israel community and you feel that you have something that you'd like to offer this work, please do so as well. Or perhaps you're far away or very involved with a community of your own, but there's something that you can either learn from what we're doing or you could offer to us as advice or suggestions, because like I said earlier, it is only through community that we're really going to be able to make a difference in this world. So one of the groups that we have at Temple Israel is our food justice team. And What we have come to learn through doing this work and through the partnerships that we have is that 45% of households in Suffolk County, which includes the greater Boston or Boston, where Temple Israel is located, is food insecure. If you dig into those statistics, we have also learned that a third, I believe, sorry, I don't have the statistics in front of me, of college students face food insecurity. And there are also very high statistics when it comes to the elder community and the community of color. And we wanted to do something about this. We're located right in Boston, and we have lots of food coming in and out of our building on a daily basis. So, what could we do to support the greater community at large? One thing that we built upon was our high holiday drive for the Greater Boston Food Bank, where we would do a big food drive annually. And we thought, why only collect food once a year over the high holidays? Why not make this an ongoing drive and change the culture at Temple Israel that if you're coming into the synagogue for any reason, bring a non-perishable food item. You might be coming for services. You might be coming for a class. You might be coming for your kids' B'nai Mitzvah practice. Whatever it is, if you're walking through the door, you could bring something non-perishable, drop it off, and we will donate it to the Greater Boston Food Bank. We have also identified places that will receive leftover food. We were having a lot of food waste at times after events. We have gotten better both at ordering correctly. We had a big COVID, figuring out how much to order post COVID as more and more people are coming back in, but we didn't have too many previous years to judge based on. So, how much is the correct food to order? We're doing a better job of. But also, let's try to make sure that there's no food waste following an event. So, who can we call and where can our food go? One of the very successful opportunities that we have started is a monthly meal prep where we make food bags that go to distribution at the Southern Jamaica Plain Health Center, the Brookline Senior Center, and our newest partner is La Collaborativa, which is in Chelsea, and they have been hit very, very hard with ICE raids. ICE has been parked in a market basket very close to La Collaborativa, which serves almost exclusively an immigrant community. They have many people in their community that have been picked up by ICE, people in their community that have just disappeared with no words. And that leaves a lot of fear for people attending the food pantry and their food banks. And they have been asking for support, asking for people who are predominantly white, American, English speaking to come and support in their food pantry. So if you're in the area and you want to volunteer with us, our next food justice event is happening at the temple on Saturday, June 21st, where we will make 300 bags for distribution. And that will occur directly after Torah study, which begins at 9 a.m. So feel free to come to that and stay for the food making. I'm seeing that there are things happening in the chat while I'm sharing my screen. I'm not reading them just yet, but I will go through a few slides, and then if anyone has questions, I will come back to answer them. If it's urgent, feel free to just unmute and let me know. This is a group, Immigrant Justice, that has existed since Donald Trump's first presidency and has become ever so important right now with the injustices that we're seeing all around us. We are partnered with a lot of local organizations. We are providing direct support as well as advocacy support. Temple Israel is involved with the resettlement of a family of 5 from Afghanistan. So we have a lot of connection to one family in particular, and the fear around some of the protections being rolled back is very, very wide. And our next opportunity to volunteer with our immigrant justice team, if you're interested, we are doing monthly visits to Chelsea to support in the food pantry, like I was just sharing. And we will be going on Friday, June 6th. Their food pantry begins at 10 a.m. They have multiple other food pantry meetup dates every multiple times throughout the week. So if you want to go, but you don't want to go with us, you can feel free to let me know as well, and I can give you more information regarding the incredible work that La Collaborativa is doing. Temple Israel is a part of the Greater Boston Interfaith Organization, also known as GBIO, which includes 50 plus multi-faith, multiracial groups organizing together for change. This is something that you definitely want to be a part of if you are interested in long-term social justice organizing work, especially legislative work with your elected officials. It is not the same as showing up, making some sandwiches, and immediately those sandwiches go to people who need the sandwiches. This is really committing your time over the long haul towards really important legislative work that will hopefully impact our lives, our communities for the better for years to come. And in my opinion, it is very powerful work to be in community with those that don't share our same faith necessarily, live across various neighborhoods, live in just very diverse communities across the entire Greater Boston community. Working together on one issue together is pretty powerful to see. We have a reproductive justice team that came into effect after Roe v. Wade was overturned. Right now, this group in particular is figuring out what can be the most productive way to spend our time, considering the vast laws going on, like court cases going on, like where can our use be the most impactful. There has been court cases around what is known as the project, where pills are sent from states such as Massachusetts that protects the doctors from being extradited to other states for sending abortion pills to those in states for where it's not legal. Yet this is being challenged in the courts, so we are curious to see what happens there, but hopeful that everybody's that it will be protected, that people's legal rights will be protected, and those pills can continue to be sent in a safe manner. We are also raising awareness about crisis pregnancy centers. These are centers of which there are 3 times as many crisis pregnancy centers in Massachusetts as there are legitimate abortion centers. They are often placed directly next door or across the street from legitimate abortion centers. What would occur at a crisis pregnancy center is often people who are not actual medical professionals, not doctors, not nurses, but they would wear outfits that would make it seem like white coats, maybe have a stethoscope over there. They are not necessarily trained in using any of the equipment that they have, and their main role is to tell people that it is dangerous to seek an abortion. They can lie to patients to say it is too late for them in their pregnancies to seek abortions. They are funded by the Christian church, and they are a very powerful network across the US that are very, very good at what they do. And what is most dangerous about them is that they appear as though they are abortion centers, so people would be going in expecting a certain kind of service and not understanding the service that they are going to be receiving. And we are also doing legislative work as well as partnering with neighborhood villages on affordable childcare, which is very connected to reproductive justice work. One additional group that we have focuses on economic justice, where we partner with local Black-owned businesses in the area, building relationships. We are looking to move synagogue and congregant finances and investments to Black-owned business partners and foster closer relationships. What we are doing right now is a little activity where we are going to different Black-owned businesses just to eat. We recently, Temple Israel booked out the whole of Ethiopia Cafe in Jamaica Plain. We had a lovely dinner there. We spoke to the chef, the owner, just an opportunity to get out of the synagogue to build relationships with more people within the Temple community and also be spending money in the Black community. We are almost through our groups, but I'll talk about a very important group called our voting rights group that worked extremely hard up until this current election to help ensure everybody who can vote and wanted to vote could vote. Because of everything that is currently happening nationally in regards to voting and democracy, this group is pivoting now to focus on protecting democracy. So it's still figuring out its best course forward and what we can do, but expanding its focus from voting rights to protecting democracy seems to be pretty important considering the current state of affairs. This is a volunteer group. It's called Partakers, where you can mentor college students that are currently behind bars and or mentor someone who has been recently released from prison. Something that I love about the Partakers program is that there is a 5% recidivism rate versus the national average of 75% of partakers of those who have graduated from the Partakers program. So incredibly less likely to reoffend and be reincarcerated if you have gone through this program. It just shows how much contact with those on the outside can have a profound impact, as well as education and support once you have been released. The picture that we have here is of a Partakers graduate, Jean, and his mentor team. He has been in the Partakers program for almost 10 years and was released recently. And one of the first things that he wanted to do was come visit Temple Israel. He's been so grateful for his TI team, and that is him at Shabbat services. We also have a gun violence prevention and recovery team, which is advocating for safer gun laws. We are in partnership with multiple community partners, including the incredible organization, the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. And you can see a picture there that was not this year, but it was last year's Mother's Day Walk for Peace, as well as the organization, the Mass Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. Another group that we have is TI Cares, which fosters caring within the Temple Israel community. So if you're a new member, you will be welcome through TI Cares. We would love to organize meals for you if you need them temporarily. Perhaps you've recently had a baby, perhaps you've been in the hospital for some reason, you have an injury. We would love to provide meals for you and your family if that is needed. We give honey jars for those who have suffered a loss in the past years, Hanukkah gifts, Purim bags. And what we absolutely need, if you're part of the TI community, is more people to join our Acts of Kindness Army, so that when we have a need, such as a meal train, we can reach out to that group of people to say, please help us. And you would be able to volunteer to do so if it met your schedule at that time. I'm pretty sure this is the last of our groups, which is our Racial Equity, Diversity, Inclusion group, which is really about strengthening a culture of belonging within the temple. So as you could see from all of our previous slides, there's a lot of external work that the Temple Israel community is doing to support, but we have to ask the question, what are we doing internally? How are we asking ourselves whether we are living out the values that we strive to do within ourselves? How are we speaking with one another? What do our policies look like? What is the impact of someone coming into the synagogue? Do they feel that they belong? And that is the work of our Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion group. So I'm going to stop sharing at that point in time before moving on, because I would love to hear if anybody has questions. And I would also love to hear about the work that you are doing. If you are out there in the world doing incredible justice work that you would like to lift up right now, this is a time that we would love to hear it. There's a question in the chat. How did the lay and clerical leadership of Temple Israel overcome the hesitation and objections of members and trustees who are reluctant, for a variety of legal, institutional, and ideological reasons, to the synagogue becoming involved in progressive political, legislative advocacy work? That is a great question. I will say that I have been working at Temple Israel since 2016. So that is almost, I've actually been working at the temple since 2014, but in this role, in the social justice role since 2016. So for almost a decade. And I have not encountered hesitation from temple leadership clergy to doing this work. This work is a part of the way that we live our Judaism. It is one of our key. Temple Israel has like a tagline, how we live Judaism through righteous impact. That's one of the three things, including dynamic spirituality and I know the other one, but I've been up for so long I can't remember right now. But righteous impact, doing good for this world.
Discovery.
Discovery. Thank you, Rabbi Zecher. Discovery, dynamic spirituality, and righteous impact. It is a part of our Judaism to care about others, to care about the world. And so I have not found it to be like objectionable, the work that we do. If Rabbi Zecher has anything that she would like to add to that, she is welcome to. But I think that is just an incredible way for us to do our Judaism, is by doing this work, supporting the world and helping it to be a better place and a just place. I'm curious if you are from another temple, if you have found this to be a challenge, or if anybody here has been finding doing social justice work or the work that they would like to be doing challenging in their communities, or the opposite. Maria, you have your hand raised. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Tali. It's been a while. I think my question really focuses on this new reality that we're living in post October 7th, where anti-Semitism is on an uptick, and relations with the particularly communities of color and BIPOC communities have become very strained in terms of political leanings and philosophical sort of disconnect. How are we as a community navigating that? I mean, it's been a long time since I've had a conversation with you or Rabbi Slipakov about that. And I'd like to know, with all the work that we are doing as not only a synagogue community, but also social justice work in general, how folks are navigating that.
Thank you for the question, and I am happy to answer it, but also happy to hear a variety of responses from the group. I think a part of the great reason for doing the Shavuot work is learning from each other and hearing various experiences. I'll answer it by, I think I could answer that in many ways, and happy to chat outside of this call, but something that I've been thinking about so much today, so this is how I'm going to lead with this answer, just because it's been top of my mind today, is after hearing about the really tragic events in Colorado, and I have social media. I see the way that people respond from the various places that they're responding to. I see the way that news people respond from their various outlets. And I'm just really troubled. This is just coming from myself. This is a personal answer of what has been troubling me personally today, is that what I think is a not necessary, you have to pick a group to care about more, and forgive the, I'll say bad, but there's better words, adjectives that you could use, actions of a group that is either similar to you in some ways, or the opposite. So when a tragic event happens, or when people are getting hurt or killed or whatever you want to place in there, it's like, are they like me? And who's the perpetrator? And are they like me? And therefore, your response is going to be different depending on which of those you are. And that has been really troubling me today in particular, because I think that you should be able to stand up for what you believe in, regardless of the people that have been hurt on the other side, if they are like you or if they are unlike you, if you do not believe that people should be killed, then it is okay for you to say, my people are part of the group that's hurting this other group of people. And I don't believe that that is okay. And I don't think that that has to mean that you're not also upset by your people getting hurt or your people being in danger's way. Or you can have an opinion that doesn't have to come in opposition to another opinion. And that possibly half answered your question, because there's a pretty long explanation that I could give that goes across a multitude of perspectives. But I would like to be in a place where we could say, this is not okay, even if.
We'll do that in a personal conversation.
But Maria, if you want to share more about what you've been struggling with in that terms, or if anybody else on this call would like to share, this was a type of a conversation that I hoped we would be able to have as a group.
I just think that the most powerful question that you asked is how we are doing the work. And I've always looked at it as the way I do the work is by showing up. Me being in this space is a radical act of social justice, because it allows for us as a community to have more diverse conversations and to be able to hear from voices that, might be, different from what we believe, and one of the things that I think has always stayed with me, and the work that we've done at Temple Israel and through Jewish Alliance for Law and Social Action with voter rights work, is that we have to show up. It's almost as though as a community we're called to show up and we can't say no. So when there's danger in the spaces where we have to show up, it becomes incredibly challenging. And I think more and more for me, I sort of live on a margin of I'm in one community and in another community and then in another community. So I have these sort of three intersections that put me in the middle of who I am as a woman of color and as a Jewish woman of color. And it becomes increasingly difficult when you have to show up, but can I show up to those spaces where I might be in danger? Or what if my friends and loved ones show up in those spaces where they might be in danger? So I think that that's my sort of personal core answer to that. But I know, to shout out Rabbi Zecher, is really not an option to say no. You kind of have to keep showing up regardless of what you might feel or regardless of any quote unquote danger that might be there for you. You kind of have to, because it's a part of who you are inside as a Jew and as a member of a community that is focused on social justice. So, and sort of where I'm coming from today.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Sasha, your hand is raised.
Thank you. Another factor that we don't take into account well is that there are Jew of color organizations, and there are Jews of color who have history with different marginalized communities of organizing between the Jewish community and other and those marginalized communities. For instance, my family, my African-American family, the Juneteenth descendant, we worked with Rosenwald to actually help create parts of Florida A&M University in Florida. And so I have been doing extensive work with my two communities on actually solving social problems and also helping the larger Ashkenazi community understand that really the real people who need to be leading relationships between the Jewish community and the larger communities of color really should be the Jews of color from those communities. We often do that with relationships with other long historic Jewish communities. For instance, if there are issues with the Iranian community, Iranian Jews lead with it. Because of historical issues within our own Ashkenazi community, we have not looked at people who are Jews of color as leaders in their own community that work with both. And that is something that's greatly needs to change, because what happens is when people who are not part of our communities go in and do work, sometimes you guys make huge mistakes that we have to go and clean up. So it's often smarter to have us do it from the begin with, because we understand the needs of both of our communities and where we would be the most of help. And so that's one of the things that Jews in All Hues and other Jew of color organizations are kind of working toward, which is really the leaders of this really have to, in 2025, be Jews of color themselves. And then it's really for Jewish people who are not Jews of color to kind of ask where there can be helpful in the work that we're already doing.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that and the important work. And you mentioned Jews in All Hues, which is an incredible group. I don't know if you're working as part of it or just affiliated with in some way or know about it, but
Yes, I do. Oh no, I've done work with them, and I've also done work with other Jew of color groups. There are larger ones that people are more familiar with, like JOCI, and then there are smaller ones which I have done work with. But I think one of the issues that has to be dealt with a little bit is, when I look at the old historic alliances between my two communities, because my family was literally there. My family is actually part of that history. One of the things that kind of didn't happen was the handing off of dealing with those relationships for the actual Jew of color children. And so what happens is you get people who are well-meaning, but are not members of a community, that sometimes are not using their time, energy, and resources in the way the community needs best. And you have Jews of color who know how to work with their community, because that's really their community, right? Know how to actually broker those kinds of relationships, but we have often been kept out of spaces and roles in which we can actually take care of that. And so what happens sometimes is that there is some work that gets done, but there's also some misunderstandings. And then what happens is Jews of color have to come in and kind of clean up. And so one of the things I would love to see is a change of that, in terms of working in the future, so that basically we have people. Yeah, that's exactly, iPhone nailed it. We in the future that we can look at Jews of color as fully members of both communities that are capable, people who are contributors to helping both of them.
thank you for bringing that up. I know that this Zoom call is represented by a lot of Jewish communities across not only the United States, but the world. And I believe that all of us have great teachings, insights, learnings within us to share. So I appreciate those that have shared thus far. And Adam, your hand is raised.
Oh, thanks, Tali. Hi, everybody. Adam Mazo here. I think some of us met earlier, but turning over. I'm a Temple Israel member, and I just wanted to just lift up and gratitude to Maria and Sasha, because it's not it takes a lot of courage, and it's not easy to speak those truths into this predominantly white space. And just really grateful to you all for sharing and recognizing that we are like, I think I'll speak for myself. I think I could do a better job as a person involved in this community of naming the crisis that we are facing as American Jews, and the fracturing of American Jewish communities that like whether we name it or not, it's happening, and it exists. And I think that you all hit on some of the reasons why that's happening. And hopefully we can, one of the things that we can do is figure out ways to bring folks together and to heal and to find ways to build coalitions and not divide them. I don't have any great answers, but I think for me, step one is just naming that it's going on. And then we figure out the rest from there. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you for the work that you're doing and the session that you led earlier today. That if you didn't catch it, I hope you all can watch it in the recordings. Ellen, your hand is raised.
In my life, I just want to make sure you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in my life here out in the burbs, I've had an opportunity to be part of a couple of different congregations, TBS for the Jewish part, and the Unitarian. And in many of the Unitarian churches, they're doing some deeper work on enslavement past and land theft issues. And so that has been really gratifying work to be involved with. And because of the pesticides that I was exposed to, I'm also disabled. So that is one area where I think most folks who are not dealing with disability, and even folks who are, a lot of folks are not getting it. And so when we request disability rights, and if you
don't look like what we are assuming a disabled person looks like, which is, you know, it means that you're with a cane or that you're not able to see or hear or that you're in a wheelchair. And it's like there's a large, large world of folks dealing with disability. And it's like this is a group that is most impacted by these cuts from the current administration, and a group that often in other parts of the country can be upwards of 30% of people in a state, like in Michigan and Wisconsin, and yet often voting in a different direction than you would think would be their best result, their best futures. So I just wanted to kind of hold that up and ask folks to think about when the next round comes around, you know, helping folks who are in disability spaces, whether it's for health reasons like myself, be able to access that right to vote. I did, you know, you can't be a good activist without mentioning something. I threw that in about the mosquito spraying in the chat, and I encourage folks to sign in to opt out. There are a lot of great solutions from an alternative group and many alternative groups. And if you do live in Mass, it is a reality in many of our county spray districts that spraying happens every week on a weekly basis and is not very effective. And yet here you are getting these pesticides sprayed at your house. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there. And thank you very much for listening to me.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen, for lifting up disability. I want to share that when Temple Israel first started our racial equity, diversity, inclusion work, which was about 5, 6 years ago at this point in time, we were doing a lot of early work and focusing on issues such as racism, which is a very important issue to focus on. And it was brought to our attention at some point that disability was falling by the wayside and how many congregants and people who are entering the space at Temple Israel could feel that they were really belonged if we put more thought to some of our accessibility, and we did, and we were able to pull together a group of people, an accessibility task force, who helped us so much with some really simple changes. For example, we have an elevator, so you do not need to use the stairs at the synagogue, but not everyone necessarily knows where that elevator is, and it is sort of right where you walk in, but to the side. And if you're not familiar with the space, you could pretty easily miss it. So there were some people who were unaware that we had an elevator or did not know how to access it. So having clergy announce during services where the elevator access is, and having more signage right when you walk in, as just one example to other changes that we were able to make. But it is very, very important. And to add one personal anecdote to that, while we were doing the ready work and while I was working on it, through my role at the synagogue, my mom had also been diagnosed at that time with a brain tumor. She has now passed of brain cancer. And if you were to see her walking on the street or walking around, you would not at that time be aware that there was anything amiss. She would have looked like a 50-something woman who could walk around, but she could no longer read. She could no longer recognize numbers. She was very, very fatigued. So it really also opened my eyes up to the world of hidden disabilities and how the world is really not suited to serve anybody who you might not be able to clearly just visibly see that they were going to have some issues with their personal
And also
space.
another thing.
Oh, sorry, Ellen, were you talking? I didn't know if that was on purpose. I'm going to call on, we have very limited time, and so I'm going to call on Shannon before I show a couple of closing slides.
Is it okay if I respond with one sentence?
Sure, yes.
I just wanted to say the one thing that one can do for people with like chemical injuries like I have is to adopt and repeatedly say no scent and no scented cleaning products, you know, and not strong cleaning products. That can change a lot of people's health, not just people who are chemically injured or disabled like I am. So Thank you very much.
Shannon.
Hi. I just want to add to what blanking it was Ellen, right? Said about the disability community. I've been in a wheelchair for 44 years, and I have multiple other health issues and some organ failure. And anyway, I'm converting and been going to shul for, let's say, it's been over a year. And it's not so much, at least where I am, physical obstacles, it's attitudinal. My congregation's on the older side, so I don't think they really even know what the ADA is, what independent living is. And some people look through me, they won't have eye contact with me. They will position themselves after Saturday, for Kiddush on Saturdays after services, so that there's no room for me to sit. So I'm left to sit at an empty table. And in all my time, I've never been treated like that. And, we talk about the stranger and the other, and I'm like, what the hell? And it's, it is very difficult for those who are ambulatory and have invisible disabilities. I, there's different groups that I guess I just wanted to add, for the physical stuff. It's been really shocking and an eye opener. And yeah, it's real, it exists. And there's no effort at my synagogue or others I had checked out that it was any different.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Shannon. I'm very sorry that that's been your experience. And, when Temple Israel started the racial equity, diversity, inclusion work, we were really intentionally trying to make it so that everybody, no matter who they are and what they're coming with, can feel like they belong at our synagogue. And of course, we're never going to do that perfectly. And I know that you're
Well,
speaking about
Shabbat Shalom. It's like,
Shabbat Shalom. Yeah, I
I
know.
don't, I
I know
don't
you're
even
speaking
get
about
that.
a different community, but I hope that everybody, no matter which communities you are part of, and I know we're all part of many, we can take some of what we have heard from people's experiences and just try to keep that in mind when we're just a Shabbat Shalom, a hello, how are you to someone, even if we don't know them. We do not know what everybody is carrying, what they have been through that day in their life, and it shouldn't be too hard for us to put a smile on our face, a wave to someone that we maybe don't know very well. I want to quickly, before I close out, show a couple of pictures of our Justice League, which is our 5th through 7th grade um, students at Temple Israel. I run a voluntary program that students in 5th through 7th grade can stay after Sunday school, and we do a different justice activity every Sunday after school. We have some photos here of just a few of them. We have done many throughout the Boston area. This is playing board games at Heber Senior Life, which is an elder community. We're making food for some people in need. At the top right, we are baking goods for hospitality homes, which are for families with children seeking medical care in the Boston community. on the top left, that is the Mother's Day Walk for Peace. There are many, many incredible things our youth can do. And if you are a young person, if you have a young person in our community, just want to lift up how amazing our youth are. And we could never do this work alone. We do it in partnership with a lot of different and amazing organizations. And we're not going to have time to dig into this final question right now, but I wanted to leave us with thinking about an issue that you care deeply about and what are you doing about it? And maybe you're doing a lot, and maybe there's more that you can do. Maybe there is a community that you can join who is working on that issue. And that's just a closing thought for this session. So thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to hand it over to Lily Van Cleve, who I'm going to make the host. And she had a huge role in organizing this entire program that everybody has been a part of. So thank you, Lily.